You are listening to the Lucha Central Podcast Network. And now, Lucha Central Weekly. And welcome to Lucha Central Weekly Podcast. This is the podcast that lets you know all of the latest happening in the world of Lucha Libre. We cover news and events from the week that was in Lucha Libre, talking Mexico-based promotions and top independents, along with luchador-related news from throughout the United States. The Lucha Central Weekly Podcast is part of the Lucha Central Podcast Network on luchacentral.com. This podcast and others from the network are also available on all major podcast streaming platforms, including iTunes, Google Play, Spotify, iHeartRadio, and more. And of course, a shout out to our streaming partners at thechairshot.com. My name is Miranda Morales, and I'm one of the co-hosts of the Lucha Central Weekly Podcast. Let me bring in the rest of the team. Introducing first, he is the dashing one, Mr. Dusty Murphy. Dusty, how are you?
I'm doing fantastic. How are you doing, Miranda?
I am doing wonderful, wonderful. And, well, we got to round out this trio by bringing in who?
Who?
It is the one and only Brendan Barr.
Hey, that's me.
Yes, gentlemen. I would say welcome, but this is all of our shows. It's not like I'm introducing you. I'm introducing you to those who may not know, or to those who do know. Welcome back. We are, this is episode 94?
Yes.
That's what my notes say. Yeah.
Yes. Wow.
Crazy.
We are very close to the 100 mark. Cannot believe it. That we've made it this far. So, as always, thank you to everyone who is listening to us, who has before, as well as new listeners. I believe something that happened last week that we weren't aware of until it was posted, but we hit some great numbers out in iTunes Mexico charts.
Yeah, thanks to Pep for letting us know about that. Pep who does the Spanish version of this show, and actually is kind of my role model. He does such good work over there.
Yes.
Yeah, Pep does a little bit of everything, Lucha Central.
Yes. So, with that, for those of you especially listening in Mexico, muchísimas gracias for everything, for listening to us, for just being a part of this show. We cannot thank you enough. Estamos muy feliz that you are listening to us, that you are just part of our show, part of our Lucha Central family.
Yeah, it's still mind-blowing to think that we're reaching that many people in Mexico, where, again, Pep is doing such a phenomenal show.
Mm-hmm.
I honestly am just shocked that he was under us in the ratings for 2 days.
Yes. Y ya tú sabes que you can listen to the Lucha Central Weekly Podcast en español con Pep. Pero si quieres algo diferente, if you want something a little different, estamos aquí for the Lucha Central Weekly Podcast en inglés. Because I guarantee you we are two different shows. I promise.
We very much are. I look at the topics they talk about, and that's why I like to see that, though. I like to see, and we focus a lot more on American stuff, as we probably should, because the English fans are much more aware of the American luchadors, as we talk about all the time.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, very good points. But that's variety is the spice of life. So we are just very honored to be able to have a great counterpart show to Peps. And again, thank you to everyone who listens, both in the States, in Mexico, and anywhere else. We truly appreciate it. We do this show to hopefully entertain, to educate, and just, celebrate in the love that is pro wrestling and lucha libre. So as we head into this week and weeks in the future, just know we got you all in our minds and in nuestra corazón. In our corazón. That's the heart. Speaking right there.
Yeah, you got to remember, I'm still on the show. You can't just do that. I'm like,
well, this is the Spanglish. That's the best Spanglish I have is Spanglish. I promise. I promise. Well, we got a lot to cover as always on this week's show. So let's kick it off. We'll have Brendan start with news of the week.
So, just real quick, I want to start by giving the big shout out. Expo Lucha has been busy on social media. They've been announcing matches for Expo Lucha. They've been announcing sponsorship deals. Take a look on there. We're not covering as much on Expo Lucha right now because we've got this big event, a bunch of big events coming up. But we will be talking a lot about what Expo Lucha is up to in the very near future. But if you can't wait, go over to expolucha.com or follow them on any of the social medias. They're on all of them. They probably even have a TikTok at this point. Anyway, I did want to mention that. In other fun things for English fans, Republic of Lucha did have their big pay-per-view. Unfortunately, at time of recording, I had not been able to see it yet. So I'm going to go over the rundown of the matches that are supposedly on it, and we'll go from there. Hopefully I will have reviews for you next week on the count, but it's on Fight right now for $9.99. If any of these matches entice you, $10 is a small price to pay, as Vince McMahon will honestly remind you all the time with that stupid flag on top of Titan Tower. So we have
only $9.99 a month now.
You'll always get me with that impression, Dusty. Even when I know it's coming, it still gets me. Okay, so they did have a few matches. And I want to thank Cubs fan for running this down for me. Because he even has this note on here for this first match. Lucas Riley, versus Cameron Gates and Dom Kubrick, who is the Santino Brothers champ. And he said that's most likely going to be a dark match, which would make sense because these are not big names, but these are all, big up and coming names, which is why I wanted to give him a shout out here, especially a Santino Brothers champ, because, those guys tend to go on to do decent things. And then we'll have, Danny Limelight and Sly Spooky against Steve Flip and, Tome Flip, I believe is how you say it. And Jacob Fatu against Lince Dorado. Nobody wants to hear about that. We talked about that last week a lot. Dante Martin, Darius Martin, against Aries and Rey Horus. Chick Tormenta versus Taya, and what could be the runaway hit on this. And Penta versus Johnny Caballero. So yeah, check it out. $9.99 on Fight. We will have reviews coming soon. If more than just me watches it, we might even have some conversations about what was really cool on this. Last week we were talking about Paros Del Mal, and then said, I believe there's a faction over there, and it's like the news heard us. Because this week Nosawa announced that Tejano Jr. would be coming in as a new member of Paros Del Mal Japan. So there we go. They didn't give any dates. They just said he's coming. Hopefully it's sooner than Veer on Raw, for those of you who watch Raw.
Zing.
It's been like a year.
They've also announced Dragon Bane and versus Alpha Wolf versus Ninja Mac is going to be on their 4/29 show. So and then Hijo del Dr. Wagner Jr. will also be on this. Those who are less aware of Noah. They've had a strong lucha presence for a long time. One that's super crazy has frequently goes over and does tours. He actually, in my presence, called somebody on in the upper management of Noah just to casually chat with them. It was a very surreal moment in my car riding experience. So and then you've had having any of these guys on the show one at a time, but you're going to have potentially you could have 5 different luchadors in Pro Wrestling Noah, which is an amazing feat for Japan. It's not like here in the States where they can just come across the border. They got to get up there. So very cool stuff. And now you know, I checked. They're actually in multiple promotions, but Paris Del Mal, Japan is definitely making a big presence in Noah as of right now. And then we were talking about covering a lot of this stuff. The World in Lucha has the majority of their card listed now. That's going to be on the 1st, which I believe is the Friday.
Yes, it is.
So it's going to be so you have to choose your matches, your shows carefully on this WrestleMania weekend. But this World on Lucha sounds amazing. We have some guy named Psycho Clown against Dr. Wagner Jr. in the main event. I mean, we talked about this in depth last week. That's going to be fantastic, and I'm so glad that they went into business for themselves. We'll see how that plays out. I'm actually somewhat suspecting that we're not going to get a clear-cut winner because they want to build to an Apuestas match. That's my phantom booking right there. So we'll see what happens. I think we're going to get a big brawl. We're going to get a lot of action, and either somebody cheats or nobody gets the clean win this time. So the fans are clamoring for more of this. Pagano's going to be there as well, and against Sadika in an Extreme Rules match, because we've got to have your cookie sheets and skewers somewhere on the show. Jack Cartwheel against Johnny Caballero, Tony Deppen versus Psychosis, and I didn't know I needed that match, but now I can't think about not seeing that match. So thanks a lot, Gringo Loco. Gringo Loco, Abismo Negro Jr., Demonic Flamita against Laredo Kid, Ray Horace, ASF. Again, just wow.
Yeah. A lot of talent in that match.
Right? And it's a great mix of like vets and hot up and comers. So,
yeah.
You can get some real magic out of that. AR Fox against Ninja Mac, which, for those of you who still don't know a lot about AR Fox, but we're watching Lucha Underground, right? If you remember all the stuff that AR Fox was on there, just imagine him in there with Ninja Mac now, and there you go. I think that's what we're gonna see. And then still scheduled to appear is Hugo Savinovich himself and Drago Kid. So, they've got some surprises they can pull out on this one, too. I am super excited about this whole card. I'm still trying to figure out a way to get down there and see as many lucha matches as I can. There's probably more. So, like, those of you out there in earshot that are planning on going down there and you already know what shows you're going to, let me know what shows that I might need to check out, because I'm still working on an agenda and ways to make this happen. And then my last story for this week in the news is kind of, unfortunately, a bit of a downer. Warrior Jr., we didn't talk about this when it happened several months ago. He went to the hospital with a neck injury during training. At the time, I was like, it's a training story. Not a lot of people know who this kid is. And not a lot of details were out there. Unfortunately, he did pass away. It looks like earlier this past week. And Dallas even made in-ring comments about it on the show, on a CMLL show, basically saying he died in a CMLL ring, kind of implying that he was training for CMLL when it happened. Some of the rumors were that it was doing powerbomb spots where they were just learning how to take a powerbomb, which is, again, this is your reminder, these people that are entertaining us are putting their necks literally on the line every time they go into the ring, and just learning how to take this sometimes is a dangerous thing.
Even when you know how to take it, it can be very dangerous. Like the recent Big E situation, it was just a fluke, but or Tyson Kidd, it just happens.
Yeah, and that's kind of what I wanted to bring it around, is that it's kind of the story right now. People getting neck injuries, or people coming back from neck injuries. This is a big thing in wrestling, and unfortunately, this is the one extreme end of it. But just generally being aware of this, and I'm like lucha schools trying to train people. They're dramatically changing how schooling is going to work in Mexico as a result of this and other accidents. So I'm interested to see how that goes, but we've been just all over wrestling. We've been talking about it. Dusty just mentioned Big E. There's some other stories going on. I'm just going to let you guys throw out anything you want to talk about on this, because it's...
Yeah, we had kind of talked about it before the show, but there'd been a lot of consternation on Twitter against Paige, because they wanted to know, like, why hadn't she come back? She kind of teased before the Royal Rumble that she might come back, and people were like, Edge came back, why can't you come back?
Yeah. Daniel Bryan came back.
Yeah, Daniel Bryan.
Yeah. And I think,
Yeah, different injuries, different people, different healing times. I hate to speak ill of it, but Paige definitely doesn't have a steroid body type compared to some, and so she may not heal up as fast.
I was going to be a little more diplomatic about that. Both of those guys had a career of wrestling. Like, they were both amateur wrestlers or in other athletic pursuits where they were building up the muscles in the neck and shoulders a lot. And Paige, you can look at her build and you can know that she didn't necessarily go through the same intense training that way. So yeah, her recovery time just naturally looked to me like it would be longer. And at least with Edge, it was not a guaranteed thing he was going to come back. The doctor actually told him this will make life better for you and make a risk of a fatal injury less, but I can't promise you you're going to get back to wrestling. That was all on Edge.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, and you're right about just how, even though we know it's the same general injury, we don't know the details of injuries that may be within, the same circle. So what Paige's injury looks like may be very different than what Edge or Daniel Bryan or, Big E or whoever, ends up having these serious types of injuries that, just really impacts not only their wrestling career, but their overall health. So I think it just goes back to, one, I think sometimes fans can just have an expectation of anyone healing, in such a short amount of time, regardless of injury. And we even, talked about it in a similar but different note. Kenny Omega, right now is recovering from a myriad of injuries and surgeries. And yet people are putting, I think, such a short timetable on his return. 'Cause from what I understand, he's had a series of surgeries to address hernia issues, to address shoulder issues, on top of getting COVID. So, I think that we just don't always have the best understanding, because also we only know what we know. There may be other, background issues, or health issues that can cause complications besides just the original injury.
But so the other side of it is this thing that we as fans, and I still call myself a fan on this, we see the wrestlers as more, they're superhuman in a lot of ways. Like in story, they will come back from an injury. In story, they will, something that might seriously injure a normal human being, they just bounce right back up from. And so it's really hard to to pull yourself out of that headspace at times and go, well, I've seen you do this. I know you're super tough and you're an elite level athlete, so you should be able to recover. And some of them do, some of them don't. I do want to swing around to the Big E's injuries as well. Like, I want to state flat out, this is not his surgeon. But a surgeon who has dealt with a lot of these neck injuries did make a social media statement on it saying, based on what they have released about his condition, the odds are not very good of him coming back to wrestling at all, let alone anytime soon. And that's even with modern surgery, like the ones that Edge and Daniel Bryan had. So, like, and he rattled it off, like the risk of like instant death is really high if he re-injures that. So, like, maybe don't go into the ring if the words instant death are being used. I'm just saying, and I know that was something that Paige talked about a lot, like back in the couple of years ago when people were like, well, what are your chances of return? And she's like, I could be paralyzed or die in the ring. So yeah, it's a thing, but I'm rambling now. Sorry. Carry on, guys. Do you have more you want to toss in on this?
No, I just think the way you phrased it like that at the end, where you mentioned that she could be paralyzed or die in the ring, it really helps put it in perspective. I think people kind of forget that could happen, that she could very easily die. And, I mean, that's scary. And when you see it in perspective like that, it makes it a much more understandable decision to, not come in early, to not jump the gun on everything.
Yeah, to wait until you get, like, super cleared. Not just I think you'll be okay, but like, no, you will be fine.
Cleared in a second opinion on it.
Yeah. And I mean, anybody, so I can tell you this from strong authority, and I know both of my co-hosts here can say this too. Everybody gets hurt in wrestling. There's nobody who they don't show up hurt. So you're already running the risk, that they talk a lot in the locker room about the difference between being hurt and being injured. And, it's a thing. Everybody's a walking, talking bruise factory with, all these things. So despite the fact that they're trained, to Dusty's point from earlier, like they're trained to land and do all these things, freak accidents can happen, but also you just always hurt. So you're always at higher risk of something going just a little bit worse because you're already starting from a poor spot. Just that at this point, I'm just going to say it to anybody with all the wrestlers in earshot. I appreciate you guys doing that, training 5 nights a week, or more, and then do 2 shows over the weekend. So I appreciate all of the work you guys put in and all the hurt that you're constantly in, just so that I can see somebody hit somebody else with a cookie sheet and then do a destroyer off of the apron. So
I guess to second that too, to a big thank you and level of respect to all the schools that are really taking this seriously. We've talked to even, Gabe Ramirez from Pro Wrestling Revolution, that talked about all of the steps that they take to ensure safety, his recommendations on finding a good school, like school that has insurance, school that, takes safety into consideration. And so, all the schools that really make an effort to train, these newcomers safely and make sure that they understand what it means to work safely and to provide an environment where that's a priority.
Yes. Yeah. I do want to, Gabe's did come to mind when he was talking, cause he even, when I described my injury during our interview with that, he even said, well, you didn't do enough push-ups. So like he knows all the proactive ways to train somebody up, and other schools will do that too. So yeah, you make a strong point. Thank you to all the schools out there. I'm always pro school, and I'm glad that you were there to catch me and bring that into perspective.
All right, Brendan, thank you so much for news of the week. Any news for Indie Roundup?
I'm going to do a quick crash report here. They had a show on the 18th for Auditorio de Tijuana in Baja California. They had 6 cards on the show. I'm going to skip the opener because we've got a few more big names on the other ones. We had Destiny and Septimo Dragon and Black Danger and Excalibur in they were trying to fill the Crash Cruiserweight Championship, which had been vacated, I believe, during the lockdown era. Destiny came out on top on that, but my goodness, that sounds like a loaded match right there. You had a hardcore match with Proximo and Toto, and Proximo came out on top on that one. You have Arandu, Starboy, and Zarko against Bugamabilia, Super Astro Jr., and Zumbi. Arandu, Starboy, and Zarko came out on top on that. And then you had Dragon Lee and Dralistico against the Flip Brothers again. So those guys are showing up everywhere. And that was for the Crash Tag Team Championship. No, it was not for the Crash Tag Team Championship. I need to finish reading my notes. The Bestia and Mecha Wolf were supposed to be in there. It was supposed to be for the Crash Championship, but they were not on the card, probably because they were at a scheduled NWA appearance. So there was no talk of the titles for this match, although it still sounds like an amazing match. And then in your main event, you had Cinta de Oro, Penta Zero M, and Lince Dorado in a 3-way match for the Crash Heavyweight Championship. And I would not have picked the winner of this match, so they probably swerved a whole bunch of people in the building. Cinta de Oro came out as the new Crash Heavyweight Champion. So, right? Yeah, right? I mean,
Did not expect that.
Yeah.
Well, he is still a really big name. Like a lot of people may not recognize that name, but that is one of the 2 Mysticos. So, that you're dealing with a big name that people is a big draw in Mexico. So that I think they made a strong choice that I think it might pay out pretty well for the Crash. Also, he probably can make more cards than Penta in particular, who's still the indie guy that appears everywhere. But yeah, there you go. I just chose that one result this week. We will, as always, we will cover as much as you want. I know that Lucha's going on all over the place, and just let me know, even if it's a single match on a card in Alaska or Idaho or somewhere where you don't think Lucha is normal, just send me your results. We'll do socials at the end, so you can let me know.
Thank you, Brendan, for news of the week and this week's Indie Roundup. You know what time it is. We're going to kick it off to Denise Salcedo, who's going to bring us this week's Lucha Central.
Why should you visit thechairshot.com? Thechairshot.com is your home for hard-hitting reviews, news, opinion, and analysis with attitude. Why? Because you're smarter than the average fan. Thechairshot.com. Always use your head.
Hey everyone, it's Denise Salcedo here in Lucha Central with a reminder of where and when to catch all of the great network content this week. Get the full lineup and listen to all of our shows in the podcast network section of luchacentral.com. On Tuesdays, Mass Mats and Mayhem takes you inside the world of Lucha Underground as they take you weekly through the series with the benefit of hindsight and the benefit of special guests from the groundbreaking series. Check out the premiere video stream every Tuesday at 2 p.m. Pacific, 5 p.m. Eastern on the Lucha Central YouTube channel and at luchacentral.com. Then listen to it on your favorite podcast platform every Wednesday. Tuesday nights live, it's Wrestle Boss, where Fabi Chulo talks MMA and pro wrestling with special guests and listener call-ins. Visit WrestleBossLive.com Tuesday nights at 7 p.m. Pacific to listen live or call in with questions, or download the show on podcast platforms on Wednesdays. Wednesday nights live on Facebook, it's Spanish show La Mesa de los Márgaros, giving you both the news and the chisme from around the lucha world. Special guests and a whole lot of fun make it one of the most talked about shows in Mexico. Thursdays, it's Straight Out of the Bodega with Papo Esco and PWR promoter Gabriel Ramirez, as they have guests from throughout the wrestling world pull up to give an inside look into their careers. From indie standouts to television superstars, each week brings a new name and perspective. On Friday, it's your double dose of Lucha Central Weekly podcast, one in English y el otro en español. Lucha Central Weekly is where you'll find all the top stories of the week, both inside and out of the ring from Mexico and anywhere luchadores are in action across the globe. Be sure to subscribe and follow all your favorite Lucha Central Network series on your favorite podcast platforms, either by their own series name or subscribe to the Lucha Central Podcast Network show pages to get all of the shows in one easy feed. And please consider giving a rating to help more fans find the shows that you love. For now, this is Denise Salcedo signing off from Lucha Central Central. Have a great week.
Lucha-Masks.com by Pro Wrestling Revolution, bringing you, in partnership with Mask Republic, the Lucha Brothers, as well as Japanese legend Ultimo Dragon. Go to lucha-masks.com and fight Lucha Strong with masks from your favorite Lucha legends and Pro Wrestling Revolution luchadores. Stay safe in style and represent your favorite luchador. Get yours now at lucha-masks.com, powered by Pro Wrestling Revolution.
Muchísimas gracias. Thank you so much, Denise Salcedo, who let us know what's happening throughout the Lucha Central Podcast Network with this week's Lucha Central Central. Up next, we are going to be rolling into our main news of the show. We are going to start with AAA.
Yeah, the card for TripleMania Night 1, TripleMania 30 Night 1, what they're calling Chapter 1. This being held April 30th at the Estadio del Baseball Monterrey was announced this week, and it is a fantastic card. Very exciting. First up on the card, we have a Marvel match, followed by the Copa TripleMania, a lumberjack strap match this year for the Copa TripleMania. Then we have the first Ruleta de la Muerte match between Pentagon Jr. and Ultimo Dragon. That's the matchup I'm most excited personally about. Like that, yeah. I mean, what a matchup, right? Like pay-per-view, and it's not an Apuestas match, but it builds to one. Yeah, a lot of cool stuff there. Next up, we have the mixed tag team triple threat between Lady Maravilla and Latigo versus Octagon Jr. and the all-new Sexy Star versus the team of Sammy Guevara and Ty Conti as part of this year's AEW contingent at TripleMania. Penta kind of fits into that in a way, too. But we'll get to that in some more detail here in a minute. We also have LA Park versus Viano 4 in the quarterfinals for Ruleta de la Muerte. And I know, like, this is going to be exciting. Next up, yeah, so good. Well, and like to see these old school guys go at it, we'll get to the kind of flippy stuff here in a minute, but this is like the other side of Lucha, the bloody brawling side of Lucha.
Yeah, two guys that just want to beat the hell out of each other.
Yeah. Gonna be a hot match. Next up, we have a tag team three-way between Dragon Lee and Dralistico versus Johnny Superstar and Taurus versus Luchador Sorpresa and Laredo Kid. Then we have our next Ruleta de la Muerte quarterfinal match between Blue Demon Jr. and Rayo de Jalisco Jr. And I believe Blue Demon is 55 and Rayo de Jalisco 62. So you're going to get to see two old men beat the shit out of each other.
Love it.
I got to see Rayo live at a recent event, and he can still throw a mean punch. He does not tope very much, but he
walks like a hoss now. I mean, he's got grandpa strength, and he'll mess you up. And then next up, we have a trios match that features some really interesting teams on both sides. First team is Bandito, Pagano, and Taya versus Andrade, Cybernetico, and Diana Perazzo.
Oh.
Right?
Yeah.
Okay. Okay. I see you, AAA.
Yeah.
They're showing up big. Big.
Yeah, and I mean, like, and you know that match is going to go hard, too.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think even the hardest, I mean, just that tease of Diana Perazzo and Taya in the same ring.
Mm-hmm.
Of course, this feels like a prelude to what we hopefully will get in a singles match further down the line. But everyone in this match will go hard.
It's so exciting, and I think that it'll be exciting to see, like, the interactions of Andrade and Bandito. A lot of the, U.S. audience may not be super aware of, the types of things they can do in their past, and so I think this will be really great match. Next up, we have what may be Brendan's favorite match of the night, the final quarterfinal of the Ruleta de la Muerta, Connect versus Psycho Clown.
Oh. Press slam that clown through the ring.
Well, I mean, look. This is one where it feels like you kind of know who's going to win. But what do we know?
No, Connect is a walking, talking legend. I mean, he is one of 7 people to press slam Andre the Giant. So, I mean,
yeah,
we know AAA likes Psycho Clown, but there would be no loss of shine if he loses this match.
No, that's true.
So,
and this has to be a dream match for Psycho Clown. You know what I mean? Like, this had to be kind of his... Well, we've seen some guys wrestling luchadors, in GCW and stuff, but this has to be his version of it. He's got enough stroke at AAA that he could set up any match he wanted. And the fact that we're getting Connect, like, that's good. And it's in the first round. Like you say, that sounds like Connect wins to me.
Yeah, I mean, because then you can have him lose against somebody else in the next round.
Yeah,
exactly. Psycho
Very
Clown
true.
won't lose to, but yeah, and again, the fans will go crazy for it. Like, that will be a good feel good moment, and that, like, even Psycho Clown, even though they love Psycho Clown, Connect winning in front of them at this point is still going to be a big reaction from the fans if that's how it goes down. And you're right, Dusty. That's probably my favorite of the first round.
Well, it's such a fun pairing in an interesting way. Yeah, just a lot of cool stuff. And then the main event, like, I'm really excited for this match. Phoenix and Io Del Vikingo teaming up in a tag team match against Matt Jackson and Nick Jackson, the Young Bucks.
Mm.
Yeah, there's your flippy match. Like, it's going to be insane. Like,
if you want your flippy stuff West Coast match, that's
there you go.
Well, and the Young Bucks being the EVPs of AEW, we've mentioned this before, like, Vikingo has to be somebody they've got their eye on. Now they're in the main event with Vikingo. Kenny wanted to drop the belt. Allegedly, the only person he was willing to drop the belt to was Vikingo. Like, he just wasn't willing to lose to anybody else. Which
is a shame, because we said it before. Andrade was just
they had
right
the
there.
Perfect spot for him.
Yeah.
And if he didn't want to drop to Andrade, they should have hot-shotted the Vikingo match a little and then had Andrade beat Vikingo. I mean, that would have been huge too. Or have Vikingo beat Andrade. That would have been huge.
Yeah.
A lot of options they didn't follow through on. But given and we've mentioned Vikingo, but I think being the big deal, they featured the AAA Mega Campeon Championship on AEW before, and the kind of large AEW contingent we see this year. We've got the Young Bucks, we've got Sammy and Ty Conti, and we've got the Lucha Bros that we know of. There's still a couple of surprise spots that, could be populated. But given this and given AEW buying Ring of Honor, and we kind of talked about how strong the Lucha vibe and the whole Lucha thing was to Ring of Honor recently, and if you're trying to retain recent fans, do you think this would be more of a AEW talent coming in so that AAA talent goes to AEW, or do you think it's like a Ring of Honor thing?
Go ahead, Miranda. I hear you.
Yeah, no, I was going to say, I think this may just be another way for them to showcase the AEW talent, but I don't think they're gonna have a AAA talent cross over to AEW. I feel like if it is going to be very selective, like maybe an Hijo de Vikingo. But
he's the only guy I see going.
Yeah,
to
he's
AEW.
the only guy. So I think that this is a way for AEW to continue this interpromotional or forbidden door type of concept, and to also branch out to another market that they've honestly kind of neglected. I think they put so much of a focus within the partnership with New Japan, and now they have, this whole other company within Ring of Honor trying to broaden out that fan base, because we also know that they are a lot more dedicated to current wrestling fans. And so if you're not necessarily trying to gain and garner, say new wrestling fans, or your bread and butter is more, independent wrestling fans, then having more of that international reach still allows you to capture a new fan base while also staying to the core of what, the company is stay true to. So, I do think it's just a great way to showcase some of their talent, a lot more of their talent that has Lucha Libre experience and background that maybe, AAA or even AEW fans don't really know much about, and bring AEW just to a wider audience. But I don't feel like it's a completely two-way street. I feel like AEW so far is just has so many people right now that if they were to bring someone over, it would only be one, maybe two people. And as we discussed, it's likely would be Vikingo.
He's the only guy in the main event that's not AEW.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, so it's kind of a natural. I mean, like it's, we talk a lot about what the different matches or what different finishes telegraph, and the fact that he's the only non-AEW guy in the main event, and Kenny's high on him. Obviously, the Young Bucks are high on him, or they wouldn't be having this match. It's a pretty exciting situation for Vikingo. I don't know that anybody seized on the pandemic era any better than Vikingo did, because he kind of came into it, a guy that you knew was going to be big, and he came out of it the guy. Yeah. And very exciting for Vikingo.
After retiring.
Yeah, after retiring in the middle of it. Yeah.
So first off, I agree that at least from the AEW perspective, they're probably not wanting as much AAA talent coming up to their show. However, as Dusty has categorized for us over and over again for months now, you have this stupid FMW or FMV.
Yeah, FMV, Full Media Adventures,
yeah, lawsuit going on, which is kind of preventing them from doing any sort of direct overtures inside the United States. However, if you are in a full-blown partnership with Tony Khan, who has two promotions to play with, you can do all kinds of things, and I would not be surprised to see a Worlds Collide style pay-per-view happening that's being done through AEW, because that still puts Tony Khan as looking like a magnanimous person. It hits all the nostalgia vibes, because there are a lot of non-Lucha fans that still have good feelings about that period of WCW, and I mean, just, you heard the reaction Dusty just gave.
Yeah.
So I think there's a lot they can do, with bringing that. And if AAA is still serious about wanting an American audience, this is a big foot in the door to do that. So they may be inviting all of this talent down there to their shows as overtures to have a bigger and stronger partnership. And both of you, I am ashamed of you for not mentioning and forcing me to do this. Of course it's two guys, because they're going to push Psycho Clown up into the United States too. So they're going to put him on AEW.
Good point.
I don't know though. The dynamic around clowns is different with kids in America than it is in Mexico. It's less jovial. And, a scary clown named Psycho Clown,
he can come in as a natural heel, so.
Yeah, that's true. That's if he wants to be the heel. I think he likes to be the baby face. Yeah. He's like a John Cena in Mexico. Yeah. And this would be Hulk Hogan level turning, so yeah.
It's possible. I think
it would be refreshing.
I think
Yeah, it would be
he
refreshing.
has
It'd be cool.
Yeah.
It would be. It would be very refreshing. But
Well,
I think
remember Doink? Like when he was a heel and started, like I loved Doink.
Oh my goodness, that was. I can go on a whole night about that because Matt Bourne is a Pacific Northwest legend, and I see his just all kinds of coolness that went on in that storyline. But that's a whole. We can maybe do that on the chair shot sometime.
Yeah.
We can talk about Doink. We've derailed you, Dusty. Keep going with your AAA notes.
That's pretty much it. Just Vikingo being the only guy in the main event that's not AEW, and kind of telegraphed. I mean, I don't want to say that we've seen signs that AEW wanted Vikingo all this time, but they definitely wanted to work with him. And I think that unless we see some talent come up into Ring of Honor, like you say, a pay-per-view, we know Tony Khan's a WCW fanboy. We'll kind of touch on some of that later, but very exciting stuff. Lots of stuff happening in AAA. There's a big show this weekend, I believe, in Tijuana. I don't have it in my notes, but we'll have the results for that next week. And check in at luchacentral.com. They'll have the results there too, faster than we will, but we'll have it with a little more style.
Gotcha, Dusty. We already started talking a little bit about AEW. So, Dusty, go ahead and take us into this week in AEW.
Yeah, our only really big Lucha news was Thunder Rosa came out for an interview with Tony Schiavone, but she was immediately interrupted by Vicky Guerrero, widow of Eddie Guerrero, who bizarrely started saying some racist and just strange stuff about racist citizenship in the United States.
It's the dumbest thing I've ever.
It was awful.
This is why AEW, you're getting so much shit about your women's division.
Oh my God,
let's just put this out there. Like, literally, what the hell? This makes no sense whatsoever. Oh. You had one of your most heated, best women's programs in your company's history, and now you literally come in and shit all over it. I'm sorry, I just had to say that because it was
it's so true.
Random.
The women's division deserves better. Like, you got Thunder Rosa, you got Jamie Hayter, Emi Sakura, Shida, Serena Deeb, all these people, and like, this is what we get? This is what we get?
They don't deserve their women's division at this point.
They don't.
It's like when you abuse, a toy so much and you're like a parent and you take it away. You're like, I'm taking it away until you learn how to respect your toys better. I kind of want it to just like, you should just stop until you learn how to respect your women's division better. But
right.
Whatever.
And it was all in the same 15 minutes too. You got all three women's segments in 15 minutes or less. Like somebody pointed that out on Twitter, which is just crazy.
Yeah. And always right before the main event when there's never enough time, so they always rush through them so that they don't have to rush the main event. And Vicky's participation, like based on who she is, was quizzical to me. I guess the point maybe is that she's a hypocrite, but Rosa just mentioned in a big interview that she was a huge Eddie fan and felt pretty disrespected by how Brock Lesnar had acted towards Eddie. Mm-hmm. And then they have his widow come out.
Well, and it also feels like just pure lazy booking. Like, anytime.
Like, 80s.
Well, 80s booking, but also just the fact, like, okay, Nyla Rose is the first big challenger,
She's always the first big challenger.
And I just feel like, then it diminishes Nyla's role because she's not winning. So
she's just the final boss,
Yeah, she's just like a not even a final boss, the first boss.
She's the first boss.
She's the one you have to beat to get to all the other bosses.
Yeah, so anyway.
Yeah. And even more so, the you don't have your green card and other things of that nature. Angle has been played out for a long time.
Oh my gosh, yes. Yeah, that was...
For a company that tries to value on being innovative, on being unique, on doing things differently, they utilize exactly what you said, an 80s trope, with a dynamic that really doesn't make any sense. You could have gone in so many different directions here, but going for the cheap heat was something that I expected better from.
And Vicky Guerrero is a genius at getting heat, so
Yeah.
like,
exactly. So
you know,
why not do something else? That's what I was gonna say. She could have just come in and been mad that Thunder Rosa mentioned Eddie and just, bitched her out. And
Yeah.
Vicky's great at stuff like that.
Right here is promo material. Like, I knew Eddie, obviously. I know Ray. You're no Eddie, you're no Ray.
Exactly.
Right?
Yeah,
You think you represent, the Mexican culture and the Mexican people, the Guerrero family, represents, like, there's so much that you could do it that still's more in alignment with Heat, but not just something that's so outlandish and so
and then you can have Nyla react to that. Like, why am I getting involved in this feud? And, have it
or
work
also
that
just
way.
just in general. I mean, if you're gonna reuse the same shit over and over again, just use, Nyla is the native beast. Nyla is, someone that is the first rung, in the ladder of Thunder Rosa's title defenses. Like, you could have gone that route too. Granted, it may have not had the same effect, but if you're so worried about that, then stop booking the same fucking things.
Yes, exactly. And they did it with Britt Baker. Like, Britt Baker, she's only okay in the ring, but they treated her like a big deal, and they made her special. And they started to do that with Thunder Rosa, this ascension through the title scene. She builds up all these wins, and then they do this, and it just felt like somebody popped our balloon.
Yeah, well, I feel like, and this was the problem for me all along, Britt Baker ran out the women's division, and then Thunder Rosa showed up, and everybody knew the writing was on the wall, like Thunder Rosa.
100%. We've known for a year.
Because Britt Baker beat everybody, but the problem then is, who's the next big challenge for Thunder Rosa? Because, your wrestling math says if Britt Baker beat everybody, and she just beat Britt Baker, who's actually a threat? They had to have been using the last year to build other people up, and they really haven't. The undercard of the women's division, to Miranda's point earlier, has been woefully underused, despite having some phenomenal athletes, some really interesting characters, a couple people who are a cross section of both, and they just have not put them in a spot where they're doing much. Like,
well, and also then you have now a secondary title with the TBS title, so now you've kind of split your roster in half almost, where you're having to need concurrent title feuds. And so when you have, say you need to also build people up for Jade Cargill. Now, I feel like that is slightly different, because that is right now look as more of a different title with a different base of people. And Jade herself, hasn't had as much of the plethora of feuds and even matches as Thunder Rosa. So I feel like, but at the same time too, maybe it's challenging now that you have to book concurrent title feuds or stories, and when you've already had a challenge with booking one title story and feud for over the past year.
So I liked what they were doing originally until I thought about it with more, because by having this title for the younger girls, I don't necessarily mean age-wise, I mean the ones that maybe are needing to work their way up to being on this super main event level, not just the main event level, but the Britt Baker, we can headline a pay-per-view level, right? It's a good title and a good place to have. It's a good place to have a Jade Cargill, who, to your point, has had very few matches. It's a good place to put your Kylan Kings, your Layla Hirsch's, and all these people that can be good, but they need credibility. And so I liked that, but then I realized afterwards that after I had started that, like, nobody's at that next level other than Britt Baker and maybe Nyla Rose, except for every time they have Nyla Rose compete on that level, she gets one big match and then loses. So her credibility is kind of shot too. So it'll be interesting, but There are a ton of women's division wrestlers between ROH's releases and WWE's releases that haven't shown up in a major promotion but are still working the indies. So
Yeah.
There's stuff that could be going on. And again, if we start bringing AAA stuff up, we could see Taya show up. I'm going to keep throwing that out there.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I mean, that's what I was getting ready to say. It's like, as far as a credible challenger that would make you think, can Thunder Rosa beat her? Have Taya show up.
Yeah.
Well, and also, I'm very curious what this means, but Deonna Purrazzo right now is the Ring of Honor Women's Champion.
Oh, yeah.
So, and right now she's defending that on Impact right now, along with the AAA Reina de Reinas title. So what does that mean, for Ring of Honor? Will they require her to vacate the belt? Will they just not acknowledge her and, create a new belt? Will she actually show up on a Ring of Honor event to, have a match with someone? Like, that's a very much of a wild card factor right now with the Ring of Honor Women's Championship that could throw something very interesting in for AEW.
So, I mean, we didn't cover this, and we don't have an ROH segment on the show right now, but a lot of that's up in question here. Like, we don't know what's going to happen with the AEW Heavyweight Championship or the Pure title. We don't know, so yeah, there's a lot of things that could happen with all of that particular sort of thing. But Deonna's kind of in the most interesting spot because, yeah, she's defending that belt on a as yet not involved show. The way they handled the Forbidden Door last time, I don't think Impact's going to be in a big hurry to start working with AEW again.
Yeah, to have their kind of women's star pinned, to...
Yes.
Yeah.
I mean, I feel like whatever happens becomes a triple threat for Ring of Honor.
Mm-hmm.
I think... I don't know, so Tony's booking it, so I can't predict as well, but I think the ROH way of handling it before would have been to have a tournament for a quote interim champion, and then you can just kind of work it out down the line where maybe you get Deonna Purrazzo when she's not quite so hot over in Impact and she needs a little bit of a boost. But that's not what we're gonna get, I guarantee, because Tony has some very different ideas on how to do things, as we've seen.
Yeah.
But I mean, didn't we get a little bit more of a tease of Sami and Tay going down to AAA on a recent episode too, or did I dream that?
They're definitely kind of aligned and feuding with Scorpio and Paige Van Zandt.
Mm-hmm.
But I do feel like they mentioned, I should have taken better notes, but I feel like there was so much other stuff going on with the whole segment. Yeah, but if you saw it, but
there was a lot going on with that segment.
Yeah. I feel like they did mention something about them going to Mexico and doing lucha moves or call Ty a luchador or something to that effect.
Mm-hmm.
And speaking of luchadors, AEW and AAA in a way, Andrade, next week, he's going to go up against Darby. Finally, they get that one-on-one match on Dynamite. Very exciting. We'll have the results for that. Looking forward to that. Who knows? Darby's going to do something crazy. As Andrade would say, how you know? Because he always does. Everybody that I work with is sick of how you know, because that is catchy. I say it all the time. But how you know?
How you know? So that's the thing that I'm looking forward to on this, because Andrade is really good at helping people fall with style, for one. But
that's a nice way to phrase it. Yeah. He really is. I mean, there's an art to it, and he's great at that.
And then he's not afraid of those big spots. So we're gonna probably see something really crazy, and I'm probably gonna be afraid for Darby's life again. He's reminding me more and more of Aerostar in AAA main events, like as we're going on, where I'm just like, you're gonna do something, and I'm going to love it, but at the same time, I am going to be afraid for your life.
Yeah, that's going to be a hot match, especially for Dynamite. I thought they'd be saving this for a pay-per-view. But they've really, I mean, this week, was a little bit of an exception, but they've really brought the heat with some of their recent episodes with Thunder Rosa versus Britt Baker last week, and then next week Andrade versus Darby. I mean, there's some pretty hot main events happening on Dynamite right now, so keep an eye on that. Yeah.
We talked about that. I feel like they do that at the expense of their pay-per-views now.
They do. This should have been at Revolution. Andrade versus Darby should have been a singles match.
And then, we talked about Rosa should have won at the pay-per-view as well.
Absolutely.
Yeah. It was Revolution. I just wanted to make sure I wasn't yeah. But yeah, I don't know. We're going into minutia on the way that they handle things in an American company that doesn't seem to. I don't want to say they don't care about luchadors, but they don't emphasize luchadors. So
yes, that's a great way to phrase it. They don't give them the spotlight as often as other styles of wrestling. Even I feel to a degree the Japanese style gets featured a little more on TV. Maybe not as recently, but in total on AEW for sure.
Yeah.
Well, the EVPs were all big on
Japan guys.
Japan, so yeah.
Next week we'll have the results of Andrade versus Darby. Probably something with Nyla Rose and Thunder Rosa. I can't imagine they're going to let that one hang in the air much longer. So I think we'll see something with that. A lot of exciting stuff coming up. We'll have all those results next week.
Yeah. Stay tuned to see if we yell at more stuff.
If,
when, who knows? Stay tuned. Dun, dun, dun. So this week in Major League Wrestling, something that's a little less agitating. Of course, MLW Fusion this week. You can catch it on YouTube on Thursdays as well as I believe on Saturdays on BN Sports. But just 1 hour a week on YouTube for free. This week, we had the return of Killer Kross to MLW for the first time in over a year. He faced Bud Heavy in a pretty straightforward squash match. Killer Kross gave Bud Heavy the opportunity to hit him in the face not once but twice. And then Kevin said playtime is over. Killer Kross won by referee stoppage, which is kind of a unique way, but in Major League Wrestling, anything goes, and you can win by referee stoppage. So
I want to see more of that in all of wrestling, honestly.
Yeah.
I mean, that is one of the unique things about MLW is the emphasis on hybrid style. You do have, as we talked a lot about lucha libre, but also mixed martial arts, also traditional wrestling, catch wrestling. They do all of that. And again, why Fusion? It's called MLW Fusion because as a product as a whole, MLW really does a wide range of wrestling. So, this again was just the reintroduction of Killer Kross. No input in storyline yet, so who knows if he's going to be making frequent appearances, if he's going to be in a feud. But this was a great welcome back for Killer Kross. We did have a few interesting segments this week. One, we had a great promo by Los Parks, who opened up their very new restaurant and beat up a patron that maybe had a problem with their food service. So Los Parks at it again, pretty much causing chaos. A very other interesting spot that happened on this week's show was TJP visited Cesar Duran's office, and he specifically was looking for a title shot. TJP was very open in saying he is the Forbidden Door, and he's putting the stop to the Forbidden Door as well with all of the wins that he's accumulated. Cesar Duran was about to give him a title shot, unknown, as far as no big emphasis on what title it was, until EJ Nduka showed up, and he was specifically asking for 5150. 5150 had beat him up the week earlier, and so he wanted revenge. Cesar Duran said, sure, but who is going to be your partner? EJ say he doesn't need a partner, and is going to take 150 on himself. So that is being advertised for next week. But as you can probably get a sense from this tease, TJP looking for gold. EJ Nduka's looking for a tag partner. Who happens to have the tag team gold? 5150. So we may see this partnership between EJ Nduka and TJP come about to face 5150 next week. Just my prediction.
Just a lot of initials in that match.
Also, yes, lots of initials. We'd have to come up with a fun tag team name for TJP and EJ because it's just alphabet soup right now. A very funny moment of the show was Tio Savio Vega making his return. We haven't seen him on TV for quite some time. He showed up and he snuck into Cesar Duran's office. He got to his desk, opened up his briefcase, found a little bit of money there, took that, and then opened a suitcase that was right next to Cesar Duran's desk. And when you know it, who was in the suitcase? Microman!
What?
Yes, Microman was in the suitcase there hiding the whole time. Microman.
Why?
What do you mean why? I'm about to tell you why. Microman has been spying on Cesar Duran. He has been able to listen into all of the workings of Cesar Duran. He shared some very private news to Savio Vega, who said they need to find Court Bauer immediately. So they ran off to go find Court with the news, the secretive news that Microman had found out while hiding out in Cesar Duran's office. I'm not making this up.
What's that? It's a suitcase. It's a briefcase. What's in there? A little man? Okay.
Yep.
A Microman.
A Microman.
It just...
I have a little man hidden in a suitcase telling me all of Cesar's secrets.
If that suitcase
Little man
is
in a
not,
mask.
and a little man in a mask and a cape, hiding out in a legit sized suitcase.
So now I want to go down to the MLW experience.
Right? That's exactly what I was going to say. If there's not a suitcase in the...
And if there is not a suitcase with a Microman in it for me to have my picture taken with, I want my money back.
Oh, man. Off the rails. This is off the rails.
We started by talking about Microman in a briefcase.
Suitcase.
Suitcase.
But
not better?
Yes,
He's not that micro.
He's not that micro, but yes, he was.
He's still partially man.
Yes.
God.
Microman, MLW's biggest star right now. I can't even believe it.
What the worst part of this is it's still not the most ridiculous story in wrestling or lucha libre.
Oh no, absolutely not. Absolutely not. But the thing about Microman taking down Cesar Duran is very hilarious.
Yeah.
Super hilarious. Lucha Underground is rolling over in its grave right now.
They're just wondering why they didn't think of it
They
first.
wish
That's
they
also
thought
true.
this. You know they wish they put Mascarita Sagrada in the suitcase.
Yes.
They had him in the sidecar, but they needed him in the suitcase.
Well, he's too big for a suitcase.
They could have got like a military duffel.
Yeah, that's true. They could have used movie magic.
Or a file cabinet, and he
Or a
opens
file
the door.
cabinet, yes.
Yeah.
Or just a locker. Just stuff him in a locker.
Yeah.
Brendan, you did mention about April 1st, Azteca Underground. That is still happening at, in Dallas. And a few more matches have been announced. MLW has announced that we are going to get a trios match. The Von Erichs will be teaming up with Hammerstone to face Richard Holiday, King Muertes, and Mads Kruger. That's going to be an awesome fight. We also are going to have a super lucha match, Bandito versus Flamita. So, Ring of Honor fans, you have this throwback too.
There's still unsettled storyline with that too, because
Yes.
yeah. Are they billing it as Flamita or demonic Flamita?
They are billing it as Flamita.
Ooh.
We may get demonic Flamita. We will see. Because I think that's one thing that MLW was very much spur of the moment sometimes, with some of the bookings and things, or how things are announced and put together. So we may see Dark Flamita, but right now it is being billed as Flamita.
Interesting.
We also are going to have a grudge match between Enzo and Casey Navarro, who have been feuding for quite a few months. And then a 4-way for the National Openweight Championship. The champion, Alex Kane, will be facing ACH, Myron Reed, and Puma King.
Puma King!
Yes.
Yeah.
So those have been the newly announced matches. Of course, with other matches that have been announced, we talked about it last week, a Mexican strap match, Aramis versus Gino Medina. This is where the ring will be surrounded by luchadors and MLW wrestlers in a lumberjack style. However, they all will be holding straps. So if either of them gets out of the ring, they will be violently beaten with straps. Lucha.
That's
like an unrepentant child.
They did this. They did it in the NWA first. So I mean, we have some credit for this kind of madness too. Mm-hmm.
We also are going to have Octagon Jr. versus Matt Cross and a Super Estrella de Trios match. As we've already mentioned, Microman will be teaming up with El Dragon and Aerostar to face the trio of Strange Sangre, which is Aries, Mini Abismo Negro, and a Luchador Sorpresa as well. So those are all the matches currently announced for the Azteca Underground show on Friday, April 1st. Again, too, some really cool interactive experiences that will be available at the show. Of course, first and second row ticket holders will be enjoying early access for a pre-show VIP lucha lunch with a taco bar, as well as a journey to the shadowy destination of Cesar Duran's office, the place where he makes matches, schemes, and holds court. Please let us know if there's a suitcase there. We just need to go.
With the Microman.
We need that. We need that so much. Speaking of, Microman will be there for a VIP meet and greet. You could take a photo with Microman. As well as Cesar Duran will have his own meet and greet opportunity as well. Those are pre-orders. Those are separate, outside of the actual ticket to attend. And of course, Cesar's Heist, which is where you can search Cesar's Cathedral of Violence on an Azteca treasure hunt before the show kicks off. So that and much, much more available for MLW Azteca Underground. And I'm really upset that I will not be able to go, because this sounds just like a lot of fun.
Maybe there's a suitcase with a Microman on the treasure hunt too.
Ooh.
Wouldn't that be amazing?
Amazing.
Book it, MLW. Book it. You've opened this Pandora's box of Microman. You have unleashed Microman to the world now.
Oh,
you can't take it back.
They need to make a t-shirt with that on it too.
We'll get there. We do have the Microman, like Super Mario Brothers shirt, which is adorable.
It's the best. It's super
adorable.
Great.
I love it. This is the lucha we need. This is the lucha that we deserve. Thank you, MLW. As much as I just literally spent 10 minutes yelling at AEW for their dumb decisions, this is a dumb decision I can stand by.
Right.
This is the dumb decision hill I will die on.
This is where the bookers and all the people in charge never understand, because the fans will respond positively to something like Microman in a suitcase, but sometimes you do other weird things and they're just like, no, that was too much.
Because Microman in a suitcase was the least racist thing that happened on television this week. That's why. It's as simple as that, AEW. It's as simple as that.
That's true. Oh my god.
Nothing about that segment was racist. I'll tell you that much. That's a secret to booking, apparently. Just don't be racist. Wow. That's
all it takes.
In booking in 2022, just don't be racist. Boom, you win.
Well, Microman jumping out of a suitcase is funny anywhere, anytime, no matter what language you speak. Like that's
universal. That's the universal language, indeed.
Yeah.
That's universal. MLW, bringing the world together. Thank you to Major League Wrestling. Don't forget, check out this week's episode of Fusion, where you could see Microman hop out of a suitcase to talk to Savio Vega about all of Cesar Duran's secrets. If this is not
this is not a test.
This is not made up. I'm not high. I'm not under any influence. I'm not joking. That is a real thing that happened on MLW television this week.
Bringing the people what they want.
Bringing the people what they want. So make sure to check out MLW Fusion each and every week on Major League Wrestling's YouTube page. Up next, well, it's that time of the week. It's where we teach you a little bit of something for nothing. It's This Week in Lucha Libre History with Dusty.
That's right. It's time for This Week in Lucha Libre History. Be sure to check in at luchacentral.com every single day for This Day in Lucha Libre by Pep Carrera for information, birth dates, anniversaries, matches of the day, amazing videos, and even more. And it's all about Lucha Libre at luchacentral.com, your centralized place for all things Lucha Libre. You may notice some format changes here and there to This Week in Lucha Libre in the weeks to come. We're going to try to shake things up a little bit, try to welcome in some more conversation. And we're starting this week by remembering the legend and legacy of WCW. WCW aired its final episode on March the 26th, 2001. And in a short time, WCW, and especially their flagship program, Monday Nitro, they did a considerable amount to introduce luchadors and Lucha Libre to the wider U.S. audience. Starting with the WCW kind of produced and helped pay-per-view When Worlds Collide, they really introduced luchadors to the wider American audience. You had guys like Psychosis, Eddie Guerrero, Rey Mysterio show up. Later through WCW, you had Ultimo Dragon, Juventud Guerrera, Jushin Liger, L.A. Park, when he was La Parka, Fishman, so many guys, luchadors and cruiserweights, that got their first chance to reach a wide mainstream audience within the U.S. There had been a lot of lucha matchups, but to me, the pinnacle of Lucha Libre within WCW, and within the United States, for that matter, at that point, was Eddie Guerrero versus Rey Mysterio in the Mask versus Title of Puestas match at Halloween Havoc 1997. I had a dub tape of that show live from the pay-per-view. I watched it about 100 times. Great match. I'm sure you've all seen it. It was a special moment in time, special moment in their careers, but the impact that match has had on so many wrestlers today, people like Santos Escobar have mentioned it and kind of thrown back to it. Seth Rollins even called back to it with his gear when he feuded with Rey. I also wanted to give honorable mention to Jushin Liger versus Rey Mysterio from Starrcade 96 and Chris Jericho's mini matches against Juventud Guerrera. Those five guys really expanded what luchadors could do and what lucha could be in the United States. And it can't be understated how important it is. They were on the cutting edge. Like, we think of luchadors flippy stuff, but this was really the beginning of that. Like, these are the guys that made you think of it that way. They pioneered that style. And without WCW and the Cruiserweight division to have an international platform to do it, lucha wouldn't be what we know of lucha today. It's just incredible how much influence it had and how much it meant. And I don't think its influence on American viewing of Lucha Libre and the American idea of Lucha Libre can ever be overstated. Brendan, what are some of your thoughts and memories of WCW?
Okay, so first off, one of the biggest things that WCW did was they forced everybody in the wrestling world to consider Lucha Libre at that point in time, because and over in the WWE, they started doing the junior heavyweight division, which they put people in masks for. In Japan, you started getting Taka Michinoku's promotion started having more and more masked wrestlers as it grew in popularity in WCW, which was inarguably one of the biggest promotions in the entire world at that point in time. So
absolutely,
that alone it just tells you about how influential it was. You mentioned a couple things. One of the first feuds that came to my mind was one you alluded to. Chris Jericho and Juventud that ended in it didn't end, but it kind of really reached its height in a place test match, which we talked about in a previous This Week in Lucha Libre history. Like it was a big deal. And then to your point, the high flying style, particularly of Rey and Psicosis. Like I know Eddie was big on it too, but like
right.
Rey and Psicosis really,
yeah. Rey was really the star of that, and Psicosis just a very cool second.
Yeah, but if it wasn't for Psicosis being such an amazing base and an amazing counterpoint for that style of wrestling, I don't think it would have looked nearly as cool. I mean, Dean Malenko did not make high flyers look nearly as cool as Psicosis did. I just,
No.
And but you still had your respect. You had the Villanos exposed to I mean, yes, they were more kind of mid-card job guys up in WCW, but you still got to see legends of Lucha Libre do like their brawling style and trios matches that made Lucha famous. So we got to see a lot of Lucha Libre. We just didn't know we were seeing it at the time. You can go back now and go, this was authentic Lucha Libre product that they just probably let them do. So, it's just all in all, it's super cool legacy. Before I ramble too much, I'm just going to toss it over to Miranda.
Yeah. No, I think too, one of the things was the presentation from WCW. I remember watching all of the segments that Mike Tenay would put together and have with his travels in Mexico and educating the American fan base for it, and specifically him as a commentator. And of course, we've talked about it many a time, but he was and still considered that American expert on Lucha Libre, and being able to provide that context to the American audience on the rules, on the legacy, on the history, the families of Lucha Libre. And I think that has been one of the most respectful ways that it has been presented to the U.S. audience. It was really the first time that Lucha Libre was looked at not just as a comedy sense, not just full of stereotypes, but as a different form of wrestling. And that was one thing WCW did well, even though it may have not caught on fire like some of their other storylines. The presentation of Japanese wrestling, the presentation of Lucha Libre, it was they embraced it and brought it in as kind of the melting pot of the DNA of WCW. And again, it may not be things that fans recognize, but it was truly one of the best presentations of Lucha Libre to U.S. audiences. I mean, WWF had always struggled in that arena. Prior to that, WCW really found that. Granted, with some help from ECW, because let's be honest,
that's a crucial step.
We're saving that for another show.
That's another day. That's another day for another show.
But that was like the proving grounds that brought it to WCW. Yeah.
And I think even without that, like, then we had luchadors who became broader mainstream stars, like Eddie, like Rey, even, Chavo, and even, Juventud and Psicosis.
You're skipping El Corazon here, Chris Jericho.
Well, yes, I was jumping around there too.
Well, and Ultimo Dragon.
Yes.
Yeah.
He got in on that wave.
Mm-hmm.
Because he was more Mexico City than Japan. It's easy to think of him as a Japanese wrestler, but like Ultimo Dragon lives Lucha.
Yeah.
He lives in Mexico City. That's his life. Yeah.
Yeah.
And so I think I don't know what the direction would have ultimately looked like. Now, granted, by the time WCW kind of had the revamp in 2000, that element of Lucha Libre was gone. They had really kind of focused more on their main stars, but that was really a big foundation of the growth of WCW. And who would have known if WCW would have lasted if they would have ever pivoted back to Lucha Libre. I think it's still been something that WWF, even now, 20 years down the line, still struggle with. And we talk about it constantly, with, the stars that they brought into the fold, people who they've let go, even with the glimmer of hope that we had last week on NXT, it's nothing that's been super consistent. Now, granted, you've had people that we've talked about that have moved beyond just this being pigeonholed as lucha wrestlers or that style. So I feel like that's where that growth has happened in WWF or WWE, but WCW as a whole really pushed Lucha Libre to a newer audience, to people like us who would have never really known about it outside of the lines of Mexico, to a weekly episodic television product across the US. So I feel like the influence is insurmountable, and I think wrestling would look so different today if it wasn't for WCW's investment in Lucha Libre.
I do have to bring up a point which I had thought of, and you kind of brought me back around to remembering it again. Before WCW did this, to the majority of Americans, Lucha Libre was Mil Mascaras, right? Like he was in the movies, he was in the WWF, he was in the NWA, but he was very much he was doing a movie star stuff. He wasn't really doing lucha as much. He was wearing a mask. He knew where to stand to get the best attention. He knew and argued, and like I've heard stories from all over the wrestling world, the American wrestling world on this. He argued to have those spots so that he could look good. Like that was what he was there for. Is he was to be colorful. He usually would be the baby face, but it was very much an American style thing where he would come in after the hot tag, press slam somebody, and then get a win, right? Like that kind of thing. So that might be what we would still be looking at. It's just American wrestlers with masks on doing American wrestling stuff. We might be seeing the Patriot over and over again. Like, it's a terrible reference because the Patriot wouldn't be over right now, but
yeah,
he's the best. He's the easiest. First one I always think of when I think of American masked wrestlers.
Yeah, it's true. Yeah, and I think that, like you mentioned, the movie star thing, if it wasn't one of those guys, they might know the lucha movies. Some people had seen those late at night, and that was their whole perception of luchadors. It was like these guys that fight vampires. Yeah, so WCW really, I mean, like I said, their importance in the in the history of Lucha Libre just can't be overstated.
Not at all. It was a good way to start this style of segment where we kind of really discuss what Lucha this week in Lucha looks like, or the legacy of Lucha, or the history of Lucha. And yeah, I mean, we already said it. We're probably going to do an ECW one, but there's, the WCW is definitely the place to start because that's really where it exploded in the U.S.
Well, don't forget to check out this day in Lucha Libre over at luchacentral.com, and of course, Match of the Day on luchacentral.com. But there's so much more that you can find. Not just that, but more. Brendan, can you let our listeners know what else they can find on luchacentral.com?
All right. So if you're listening to this and you haven't visited luchacentral.com, it's time to do it. Luchacentral.com is the online home for Lucha Libre, where you can get all of the top news in English and in Spanish. Find the best curated video content and original content not seen anywhere else. Find when Lucha Libre events would be happening in your area. Find photo galleries from top photographers covering Lucha Libre all around the world. A place to have your voices heard, from weekly polls to annual awards, seen and read by top executives in all of the major Lucha Libre promotions across the globe. And on top of all of this, it's free. So get over to luchacentral.com, your centralized place for all things Lucha Libre.
Brendan, go ahead and take us into this week in CMLL, because we have some great news points.
We had, as usual, CMLL had a lot of shows, but they had one show that was kind of loaded, and we had a few things going on. So, we had a an apuestas match, but not just an apuestas match, a ladies apuestas match featuring Reina Isis versus La Vaquerita. I know I'm slaughtering that. I apologize. That's mask versus hair. And Reina Isis retains her mask, with a little bit of help, but, she did. So La Vaquerita has a new haircut going on, which again, when you think about apuestas matches, we usually talk about the men's matches, like the handsome men will lose their mask, the beautiful ladies will lose their mask, but seeing the ladies lose their hair is pretty rare. I think Fabi or Mary Apache is the only other one that comes to my mind immediately, and I think that was the last time I saw one too. So kind of interesting. I was super into that. Then we had a new set of trios champions crowned. There was a whole tournament that took place throughout the evening, culminating in, Gamilio Diablos 1 and 2 teaming with Sagrado against Atlantis, Gran Guerrero, and Ultima Guerrero, which again was kind of a weird Rudo technical pairing, and if this were the WWE, the whole storyline would be how would they get along? And the answer seems to have been they didn't, because Gamilio Diablo 1 and 2 and Sagrado wound up winning the trios champions, interesting. Two things that were interesting to me on this: one, that the Rudos came out on top, and two, that it was both of the finalists were not trios. They were both tag teams with a bonus person. So I think it'll be interesting to see who comes up as a top contender for the trios championship in the near future. And then they had a main event, which was Averno and Mystico as a team. That's already a bizarre Relevos Incredibles right there. Those who don't know the history between those two, like the comic books were pretty much written on those two fighting each other and with a fight forever energy. But they were as a tag team tonight against TJP and Volador Jr. So TJP wins the award for being talked about in the most segments tonight. But I
don't know. I think we said Microman at least 50 times today.
Yeah. But it was all in one segment.
Okay, fair enough. He is talked about in two segments tonight. So
well,
yes,
now we spread Microman to this one.
It's just like that guaranteed contract. For every time we say someone else's name, we have to say Microman twice.
Okay.
Yeah. It's like Beetlejuice, but way more fun. A suitcase.
Yeah.
You open it up.
Oh,
Microman!
If we say it enough times, will he show up in a suitcase? Microman.
Yeah.
Ding dong.
You're not going to find out till somebody knows your secrets.
Well, he's going to be really bored in my room then. This guy really likes lucha. Oh, well, that's not a secret. Anyway, so before we derailed further, Averno and Mystico did win. So again, I need to see this match. I did not see this match, but just the storytelling going on of having those two in a tag team together, and they won. I need to know what's going on, because I feel like that's gotta be setting something up. Like, that's just crazy to me. So, but that's my CMLL results for this week. I will definitely be keeping an eye on this, and they're filling a lot of belts right now with tournaments. So every time I catch them doing that, I will report on that as well. But that's it for this week.
Thank you, Brendan. Up next, we have This Week in WWE. Dusty, go ahead and kick it off.
Yeah, just a couple of quick notes. First up, on Monday Night Raw, we had the Mysterios defeating the Dirty Dogs. This match was a real mess. Miz was on commentary. Seth comes out in the middle to interrupt and demand a WrestleMania match. It was all over the place. Dominic got the pin on glorious Bobby Roode. Afterwards, The Miz hit a skull-crushing finale and snatched Ray's mask and ran off. He said that it was Logan Paul's dream for years to have one of these masks, so he got it for him. Setting up the higher emotional stakes, that mask snatching, I mean, that's real stuff. Like, you gotta get your revenge about that.
Yeah.
Dominic had a towel, like, so fast. He was ready. And got Ray's face covered. Higher emotional stakes for WrestleMania. You know, the possibility now, it's looking like the Mysterio family might win at WrestleMania. Monday, if they get the mask back and kick the Miz's ass, they're gonna lose. But if they, you know, don't get their mask back, the Miz doesn't get his comeuppance. Mysterio's at WrestleMania. I'm calling it now. Then on SmackDown, we had Los Lotharios fall to Nakamura and Rick Boogs. It seems that with Big E's neck injury, as we kind of mentioned before, the plans for Los Lotharios through WrestleMania aren't going anywhere anytime soon. This match was really just there to build up Nakamura and Boogs as serious challengers on their way to the tag titles. But it's unfortunate for the upward momentum that Angel Garza and Humberto Carrillo had before with the New Day feud. Looked like that was going to roll into WrestleMania with them. Hopefully we'll get to see them 2 nights. There's a lot of time to feature talent, but I wouldn't hold my breath. We'll see what happens. We'll have more WrestleMania news next week in our preview. We'll record it before it airs. We'll have a preview for WrestleMania next week. So stay tuned next week. Lots of WWE news.
Thank you, Desi. On to, well, the other part of WWE, and that's NXT. 2 matches to note for this week's show. One of them, well, I couldn't really find, so I had to look up. And so that is because this match wasn't part of the Hulu episode. When I went through it twice to see, did I miss it? And apparently this was live on USA, but on the Hulu playback, it was cut for time, possibly. And that's Elektra Lopez versus Fallon Henley. We saw this feud kind of hit a peak last week during the chaos that was Dominic Mysterio versus, I believe it was Raul Mendoza. And so this time we had a one-on-one match. Now, before the match got started, though, the odds were evened out because Josh Briggs and Brooks Jensen, who have aligned themselves with Fallon Henley, took out Raul Mendoza and Joaquin Wilde by brawling with them in the back. And this match, though, was fairly quick. Elektra Lopez winning with the power bomb. And this may lead to a further feud down the line. But I think it is important that Elektra has her own feuds. We haven't really seen her in a feud at all wrestling since the whole Hit Row feud with Legado del Fantasma and B-Fab. She's had some matches here and there, but I do think that she needs to have a proper feud. So this may mean more matches down the line, and even just a trios match possibly, with Fallon Henley, Briggs and Jensen versus Legado del Fantasma. The main event of the night, though, was the finals of the Women's Dusty Cup Classic. And we had Io Shirai and Kaylee Ray versus Dakota Kai and Wendy Choo. This match, you know, I've been very surprised on the great teamwork between Dakota Kai and Wendy Choo. A very different direction for Dakota Kai in general to be in, but really good chemistry, as well as the great chemistry between Io Shirai and Kaylee Ray. They're 2 women that just like to fuck shit up, and so why not team together? One of my favorite points of this match was a beautiful drop kick that Io Shirai landed on Dakota Kai to break up a pin attempt that Wendy had on Kaylee Ray. Just great thinking and work of Io Shirai. She is truly the genius of the sky because she utilizes her arsenal of flight, both in the offensive and defensive. It's fantastic. Io Shirai and Kaylee Ray won this match. Of course, Io Shirai with the beautiful moonsault to win. They celebrated, but also in kind of an odd ending. Talk about women's booking, decisions. They announced that they were cashing in. So, of course, the winners of the Women's Dusty Classic earn a NXT Women's Tag Team title shot. And they decided to cash their title shot in at a fatal 4-way match. And so instead of having just a singles match, they've decided to cash it on a fatal 4-way. So just kind of interesting setting for that, but overall entertaining.
I as the person who wants to believe that, just honestly can't find that appealing, because why would I, as a person who has a guaranteed shot, say I want to give myself a 1 in 4 chance, and I'm not involving Steiner math here, so.
Right. I mean, granted, Kaylee Ray and Io Shirai are the type of women who love to fight, so that's the only reason why this somewhat makes sense, but that's a super long shot.
Yeah.
That's reaching, I think.
Yeah.
But whatever. I've yelled enough about women's booking tonight. It's exhausting. This is exhausting.
But that's just generally awkward booking, not just women's booking.
No, that's true, because I believe the same thing somewhat happened with the winners of the men's Dusty Cup, where pretty much the shot wasn't necessarily there. The winners didn't necessarily get like a straightforward title shot. So it's kind of like they're having this great tournament and they have this result, but ultimately it's not necessarily being utilized as such a great opportunity if anyone can kind of bypass it for a title shot.
Yeah.
Whatever.
Anyway,
just stay tuned to NXT. I still have hope for NXT.
We're a little salty about WWE product right now, folks. Yeah. We'll come back around at some point. But...
Yeah. Don't worry. Look, Santos Escobar is still going to be in that ladder match at Stand and Deliver. Solasica, I believe, qualified for that as well, and a few others. So that is going to be fire. A-Kid also qualified for that match as well. So it's going to be fire. It's going to be good. So, there's still hope there. Don't give up on NXT, people. Don't give up on NXT. For the very last news story of the week, this is a last-minute edition, but there was a few notes I did want to bring up and hadn't talked about in a while, and that's Impact Wrestling. Yes, we are back talking about Impact Wrestling, mainly because the opening match of tonight's show was just too good to not talk about. And I haven't seen it yet because at the time of recording, I have not watched it. But for your opening bout of tonight's Impact episode, you had Willie Mack versus Laredo Kid versus Mike Bailey. And this was a triple threat match with the winner going forward to face Trey Miguel and Ace Austin in another triple threat match for the X Division Championship that's going to be for the Rebellion pay-per-view coming up very soon. And so Mike Bailey won that match, which isn't surprising knowing that that's who they're pushing right now. But to have all three men in this ring, I did see some pictures on social media, and it definitely looked like a really good match. Of course, Willie Mack and Laredo Kid in the same ring. Hello. But then you have adding kind of this newer factor in Mike Bailey. This itself has the formula to be just something exciting to watch. So I will definitely be going online to watch it, finding it. I highly recommend. I mean, I haven't seen it yet, but you all should watch it. We all should just watch it. We should just watch it. That's it. That's all you got to do. Yeah. And so we just go ahead and watch it. Willie Mack, Laredo Kid, Mike Bailey. Good shit.
Go ahead, watch it. We'll wait.
Go wait. Just come back here. The other news story I wanted to mention, this has been circulating now for a little over a week, but Hernandez is reportedly done with Impact Wrestling. This is coming from Fightful Select. They have noted that Hernandez is no longer in contract or working with Impact Wrestling. This comes at a moment where there has been several other Impact stars who have left, like Rohit Raju, Jake Something, Kimberly, AC Romero. So kind of Impact's way of either letting talent go or not renewing contracts or moving forward. But Hernandez itself, he hasn't been seen on television, I believe, since early this year, back in January, and he rejoined the company back in 2020. And he'd been working intermittently since then up until January. And Hernandez just has a long history with Impact Wrestling. He was at one point the TNA World Tag Team Champions, also part of LAX, and then previously when Impact was aligned with the NWA, part of the NWA World Tag Team title champions there with Homicide. So one less, lucha adjacent wrestler on Impact Television. But also, someone who is at a point in his career where he can easily swing in and out of opportunities and working with promotions. But, just another sad note for Impact Wrestling, losing that lucha libre and Latino presence that I think would do very well there. It's a very unique company, very unique storylines, and a lot of rich history, both good and bad, but still a good hidden gem as well. So still recommend that everyone keeps an eye out for Impact Wrestling. I know they're doing big things at WrestleCon with the WrestleVerse Multiverse. What is the name of it? The Multiverse of Madness show, where they're, putting together some crazy dream matches, working with Ring of Honor, and putting together some really interesting dream matches there.
Yeah, it should be a good show.
Yeah, and that's the beautiful thing. I mean, as much as AEW likes to tout, the Forbidden Door, Impact Wrestling has been truly the promotion that has opened their doors wide for lots of companies. They were really the holding place for Ring of Honor just until we found out that Ring of Honor was being bought. So they really helped keep things like the Women's Championship on weekly television. They gave, some Ring of Honor talent the opportunity to still have that television presence while all of this was being sorted out. So I always have mad respect and love for Impact Wrestling.
Absolutely.
That is this week's show. We made it. Thank you all so much for listening. As always, don't forget to check out luchacentral.com, your centralized place for all things Lucha Libre. You can also check out Lucha Central on Facebook and Instagram at Lucha Central, and on Twitter at LuchaCentral.com. Of course, you can check out Lucha Central's YouTube page that has the archives that is the Lucha Central Weekly podcast, both in English and in Espanol, as well as exclusive interviews and matches that you're not going to find anywhere else. While you're at it, go ahead and follow us on social media. Dusty, can you let our listeners know where they can find you?
Yes, I am on Facebook at facebook.com/Dusty Murphy, and I am on Instagram at Dusty Murphy.
And Brendan, can you let our listeners know where they can find you?
Yes, I am 321 T-shirt guy. That's the numbers 321 T-shirt guy, all spelled out. I am on Facebook, I am on Instagram, and I'm all over the Twitters.
And me, Miranda Morales, you can find me at the #Miranda, spelled out, on Instagram and Facebook. Do not forget, if you are an independent wrestler, promoter, fan, just reach out to us. We would love to highlight and talk more about you on the Indie Roundup. We'd love to promote independent wrestling throughout the United States. We want to be able to be sure to rep Lucha Libre wherever it is. Like Brendan said, you could be in Alaska, you could be in DC, you could be in Florida, you could be in Montana, you could be in California. Wherever you are, we want to make sure we try and cover you here on the Lucha Central Weekly podcast. And one last reminder, if you are listening to us on your favorite podcast streaming platform like iTunes, Spotify, Google Play, iHeartRadio, subscribe, rate, and review. Subscribe so that way you get notification each and every time a new episode of the Lucha Central Weekly podcast drops. You can leave us a 5-star rating and a review. Let us know your thoughts on the show. Let us know what you think, things that we should cover, maybe things we shouldn't cover. Are your thoughts and opinions about our thoughts and opinions? Let us know online. We'd love to interact and just know your thoughts on the show. We've done it another week, number 94 in the books. Thank you all so much for listening. For Brendan Barr and Dusty Murphy, I'm Miranda Morales. Thank you all so much, and we will be with you next week.
Lucharán a 2 de 3 caídas sin límite de tiempo. En esta esquina.